This is Horton Creek, where the water goes underground. It just abruptly disappears. There's supposed to be a system of caves under the creek that it flows into. It's kind of like a spring in reverse. It's running fast and then it's gone. As you can see, the creek bed is completely dry, but right here there's waterfalls. Here we have Horton Creek, approximately 100 yards from where it goes underground. It's a pretty good creek by Arizona standards. This creek actually is well known for having wild brown trout, one of the few creeks in Arizona that does. It also runs like this year-round, which is unusual. It's spring-fed up above, so the water is perennial, and it runs about like this year-round except for when it floods. Now here's a dilemma a lot of people face when they're out hiking on trails that aren't maintained, and that is whether to cross the creek or not. Now you can see the trail goes up here. It looks like it gets pretty steep, and across the creek it looks like it's a little bit better. But you can't know for sure, if you don't know how to read the terrain, if the trail across the creek will remain pretty easy. If you know how to read the terrain, though, you can make a good guess. The creek actually curves off to the right, and if you stay on the inside of the curve, the land is usually flatter. It's usually on the outside of the curve on any creek where the land will get real steep, like you can see here. So I'm going to find a place to cross here, and it's a pretty good guess that it'll stay pretty flat and easy to traverse. Now, if you get on the inside, odds are it's going to get real steep and gnarly, and I don't want to do that. Now, many people, when they hike Horton, will follow the main trail, which is way up in the side of the canyon. If you stay down by the creek, you'll find there's many little waterfalls and pools and little scenic ponds and meadows that you don't see when you stay up high. I like to stay down by the creek, even though it is a little tougher hiking, because there's so much more to see. This particular waterfall is quite deep at the bottom, and I don't know if you just saw that, but there was a big trout that rolled. I can see several large trout swimming around in the pond, some of them in the 1 to 2 pound range. Horton is catch and release only now for brown trout, and it is one of the best brown trout streams in the Payson area. Most other creeks are what they call put and take. They stock them, and people catch the fish usually the same week that they're stocked. These fish are wild, and they do get quite large. And this is what we get when people watch too much reality TV. We have a huge fire pit here, complete with couch. They left behind their trash and their socks, and they built a brush shelter. This is all in an area where you're not even supposed to camp, because you are not allowed to camp in this canyon until you reach the barbed wire fence just before the spring. Again, looks like somebody's been watching survival shows and taking it a little too seriously. That brush shelter would do absolutely nothing. It's just some branches thrown up. They left behind their trash, and they have a huge fire pit that wouldn't keep you warm. Now, if you really wanted to stay warm, you'd have a small fire. Rather than a huge fire like this, you'd have a small fire over there up against the cliff, and you'd sleep with your back to a rock. And that would probably keep you warm in the 30-degree weather we've been having. Instead, they created a huge mess where they're not even supposed to camp. So much for Leave No Trace. And here we have another campsite inspired by survival reality TV. I really wish the reality shows would show them busting up the shelters at the end of a stay. A lot of these people who come out here think this is the way you're supposed to camp. Now this is a good 2 miles from the trailhead out in the middle of nowhere. They think this is the way you're supposed to make a campsite. And we have about a 10-foot tall pile of timbers that they actually cut. You can see where they dragged up and cut green limbs. Must have hauled a saw in. They left their crap behind. None of this is really the way that is appropriate for this kind of wilderness. You need to leave no trace. And that means if you make a shelter, knock it down when you're done. Don't cut green limbs off trees. Don't leave your trash behind. Don't make a great big fire pit with Flintstones chairs and a table, or if you do, knock them down when you're done. Try to leave no trace that you were here so that other people can enjoy the wilderness. There is a place for wilderness shelters, but what they built here, even if they wrapped it up in tarps, would be no more comfortable than your average camping tent. In weather like this, I often just camped with a bivy sack and a sleeping bag and a ground cloth, and I was perfectly comfortable. When you make a big shelter like this, it just ruins the experience for anybody else who comes along. The battery on my phone is just about dead, and after ranting a bit about those last 2 campsites I found, thought I would leave with just one last beautiful waterfall. This creek has thousands of waterfalls like this, and again, if you stay down by the creek, the trail is really not too bad. You just need to employ a little bit of common sense and route finding and watch where you step. Watch for snakes. Don't twist an ankle and be careful. But it overall is really not that bad. It's no worse than, for people from the Phoenix area, it's no worse than climbing Squaw Peak. So I really recommend, if you hike Horton Creek, take the path that follows the creek. It's so much more beautiful than the higher trail, even though the higher trail is easier. Well, I said I was done filming, but I have a little bit of juice left, and I thought I would show you what the main trail, what I've been calling the higher trail, looks like. As you can see, it's a lot wider. Originally, this was a wagon road. There was a homestead up at the spring. And if you are riding a horse, or if you just want an easy hike, this is a very easy hike. But if you stay up here, the creek is way off over there, and you can't see anything. So I like to, again, stay down by the creek. You see more, even if it's a little bit more challenging. And now I'm on my way home, and my phone is out of juice. So I'm signing off here.